Back at Hallis Hall, Kevin Warren, the Bears president, joining us, and we were just talking. The offseason goes by. We were just seeing him at the Combine. He was in our studio, our State Street studio. This doesn't have quite the view as the State Street studio, but we love the way you guys roll out the red carpet for us when we come up to your building at Hallis Hall. We enjoyed practice today. We took that all in and watched the press conferences and saw a lot of great fans. And now we enjoyed the radio show today and Kevin Warren joining Waddle and Silvy on ESPN 1000. How have you been?
I've been doing great. It really is a pleasure to be here. I'm excited about this season. I feel healthy. I'm happy. I'm grateful and truly blessed to be here in Hallis Hall. I'm looking forward to a phenomenal football season ahead.
Time flies by when we get to be this age, doesn't it?
And when you have fun.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
But it does. As you get older, it's interesting. As you're a child, you're trying to speed your life up to get to adulthood, and then when you get to adulthood, you're trying to slow it down to make sure you savor every moment. So that's why my goal every single day, there's 1,440 minutes in a day, is to make every minute count and take advantage of it because life goes fast.
How is the building functioning now, a year after you first got here, and are you happy with how it's functioning?
I'm ecstatic regarding how it's functioning. Having an incredible relationship, one with our owners, and I was so blessed to spend an afternoon with Miss McCaskey last week, which is absolutely incredible, and then just the leadership of George McCaskey as our chairman, and then having other family members in the building is really special. So that's that, and my expectations are really high. So that's going how I expected. Working with Ryan Poles and Coach Eberflus, and then our senior leadership. I mean, we've hired just some really talented individuals to incorporate those with the individual we had here. But Ted Cruz, who came from us from Kansas City after 3 Super Bowl rings, and Tanya Dreesen, from the Vikings, Krista Whitaker, Mika Morris, and then get them together with individuals like Corey Ruff and Karen Murphy, who's absolutely a star, and Tanisha Ways, Liz Geist. I mean, so we have incredible Scott Hagel, Lee Torling. I could go on and on, incredible senior leadership. So that's always hard to do because there are a lot of people who recommended to me when I came here just to clear everything out and start over. And my feeling was I spent a year of talking to every employee is to try to make sure we put together the best team who could work well together, and I'm just grateful and pleased of how it's coming together.
Somebody who I trust implicitly said that you have given Matt and Ryan everything they have asked for. Have you had to say no? And is that true, or have you said no to a request that came from either one of them?
Here's my theory on it. It is incredibly and extremely hard to win a game in the National Football League. I mean, this is not. I mean, I was fortunate to work in the Big Ten. And, sometimes I would see Big Ten football teams go play a NAIA school or Group of 5 school. And you just say, if you look at the individuals or look on paper, there's no way that they could win. You think about it, we're working all from the same salary cap. So one of my goals coming in here was to make sure that we created an environment that was holistic in nature, that was based upon trust, that people work together, that we set the standards incredibly high, almost uncomfortably high, but that we create an environment. I'm a person who starts every day that I want to get to yes, because at the end of the day, for us to give us the best chance for the Chicago Bears to bring that Super Bowl trophy back home and to keep it here is I never want to hear that, well, Kevin, if we had the opportunity to do blank, fill in the blank, whatever. Mm-hmm. You know what? We came to you, and we couldn't sign this player, and that was the player that we were one person away, or we stayed in this hotel or this airline, we took this plane or the food or whatever. I wanted to be where, and I asked Ryan, we have weekly meetings, and at the end of every meeting, I always conclude with, is there anything else we need to do to be a champion here? And that's my goal. I want to get to the yes. Now, how that comes about sometime and how the sausage is made is irrelevant. And so my goal is to keep our players clean, our coaches clean, Coach Eberflus clean, Ryan clean, our ownership clean, George, and all the bullets. I prefer them to get shot at me and just allow them to do their job. And so as I look at a year later since being in the building. Things and my expectations are high. We are exactly where I thought we would be from a business standpoint, from an operational standpoint, from a stadium standpoint, from a football standpoint, and I'm very pleased with where we're at.
Do you get the yeses like Matt and Ryan get yeses from you? Do you get the same yeses from George? Is it easy to get yeses from them and from the board?
Well, I would say I never say the word easy. I think one of the things when you work with people who are talented, who have a high IQ, EQ, who are bright, who want to win, it's not even about yes and no. It's about like, what's the right thing to do? And that's how I always started. What's the right thing to do? And fortunately, I just want to make sure one of the things I'm trying to make sure I do, even at a higher level, is just to over communicate within the organization. And I have found that, like most people, if you're rational and reasonable and it makes sense, one thing I'll say about the McCaskies, and I've enjoyed this from George, is that if it makes sense to help us win football games, it's very reasonable and rational conversation. So I'm very thoughtful, and I always try to make sure before I go to any meetings that I've done my homework and preparation. But that's all we're trying to do here. And I just feel that we have a very unique group of individuals that we're passionate. And the thing I love most about our players, like we have individuals who love football, and it's a lot of competition. It's a competitive group. But there have been many times this off season that I've gone into restaurants in Lake Forest. I've gone into restaurants in downtown Chicago, and I look across the restaurant and players are together. And that's always a good sign of when you see them spend time outside of quote unquote work, that they really enjoy to love each other. Is creates an environment where you could have a special season.
All right. Something caught my ear that you said in your last answer.
Mm-hmm.
And now I don't know you well,
Yep.
but I've gotten to know you a little bit through some of our conversations, and you are super positive guy.
Yep.
Is this Kevin Warren being super positive when he says the stadium situation has gone exactly where you expected to be? A lot of our listeners, and when Waddle and I read a quote from the governor, nope, this is a non-starter. We're here. Is this, Kevin, is this really where you thought you would be at this stage?
Absolutely. I mean, fortunately, me coming here to the Bears, I was blessed to have the challenge of being involved with an incredible group of people at US Bank Stadium. And if you saw the number of twists and turns that we went through in Minnesota, that's part of it. I mean, that's why when you build these stadiums, you focus on having them functionable for 30 or 40 years. This is not something that you do every couple years. These are complicated projects. Now, they're special projects once you get them done, when you cut the ribbon, and even more so when you play in them, it really is special. So we're exactly where I thought we would be. They take time. Our team is continually working daily on working through all of the issues, all the complex financial issues, all the economic development issues, all of the diversity and inclusion issues. So we're very cognizant of it. So absolutely. So if you could really go look at my strategic plan for this year, this is about where I thought we would be, and I have the utmost faith in Governor Pritzker. I have the utmost faith in Mayor Johnson, and I say even Mayor Hayes here in Arlington Heights, because we're the largest landowner there. And I'm just confident. This is a very complex political environment. Just look what happened in our country in the last couple of weeks. I mean. And there are a lot of moving parts. So because that, I am again back to be a rational, reasonable person. But I'm not surprised. There's a lot of work that we've put into it. There's a lot of work to be done, and I have the utmost faith that at the appropriate time, we will be able to come together and work something out that's in the best interest of the state of Illinois, in the city of Chicago, our Chicago Bears fans, and so these things absolutely take time. Fortunately, I've run this marathon before, and it's ended up pretty well. US Bank Stadium still has been voted the number one, stadium in all of pro football, maybe in all of sports. But that was not done in a couple-week period. It took a lot of time. There was a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of planning, a lot of revising. But at the end of the day, I'm always focused on the end product.
How would you define the difference in maybe the hurdles that existed with building that project in Minnesota, whether it's political or it's geographical,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the case may be? Maybe what challenges are you finding exist here with this project that maybe didn't exist in Minnesota?
I don't know if it's anything that exists here that didn't exist there. I'm just thinking about it because every project has its own kind of rhythm and cadence. And I look at Minnesota, if you kind of rewind time, you think about it, the Metrodome roof collapsed. And so we ended up having to play a game and miss a game. Then we played in Detroit. Then we played for a couple of years at the US Bank, at the University of Minnesota. So it was interesting that we were working through all these issues and all of a sudden the roof collapsed. So people obviously said, we got to build a new stadium. So I would say one of the things that fortunately I'm grateful for that we're having here is we're actually able to do a lot of planning right now. There, once the roof collapsed, obviously we couldn't play at the University of Minnesota. We had to just get to work and get things approved, although it still was a lot of work. So here is actually the flow and the rhythm is a little bit more sensible because we're actually, able to plan ahead. So
it feels like the city is more willing to be part of this program versus downstate. Has the lack of continuity between the local legislators and the state legislators, has that been a bit surprising?
No, I don't call it the lack of continuity. I just think that's part of this process. I mean, there are a lot of moving parts, and one interesting thing about Chicago, unlike Minnesota, we have more sports teams here. I mean, and Minnesota, we had less sports teams here. And so I know the White Sox, who I have great respect for Jerry Reinsdorf and what they're trying to do. I mean, we have these issues to work out with, the ISFA, how that, we end up settling and resolving those issues. We have a historical stadium site at Soldier Field. There are just a lot of different moving parts, but as I sit here today, and then my staff, if you talk to them, I've never walked into a meeting and go, boy, this is not what I expected, or this is concerning me, or whatever. You just have to. We have a plan. We're continually working on our design, putting things together, still working on ideas, being creative, learning, being positive, and I am confident, and I'm sure you'll be able to come back to this show and say, he said it then. Is I really believe that we're moving in the right directions. But again, these projects take time. There's a lot going on in our country. This is an election year, but I have the utmost faith in our political leaders, from Governor Pritzker to Mayor Johnson to Speaker Welch to President Harmon, and all of our local leaders. And I'm confident at the appropriate time we'll be able to put our heads together and figure something out.
Kevin Warren, the Bears president, joining us. It's Waddle and Silvy on ESPN 1000. So do you believe that whether it's in months from now, a year from now, that you will have this finalized where the Chicago Bears will build a new stadium on the lakefront?
I am confident that the Chicago Bears will have a new stadium that we'll be able to play in. I mean, I still believe that the museum campus on the lakefront is an absolutely perfect location. There's, Chicago's the greatest city in the world. There's no other location that has the beautiful architecture of downtown, a lake that's clear that you can swim in, where water meets land, the kind of diversity of food, of people, that multicultural aspect of a city like Chicago. We have, I think it's 44,000 hotel rooms, and I keep going back to it. I just read recently where the Big Ten just signed an extension to take the Big Ten championship game to Indianapolis to 2028. Those events should be happening here in Chicago. College football playoff game, Big Ten championship games, Super Bowl, concerts, all these different things should happen in Chicago. But again, I recognize this is, we live in the complex world, and also great projects take time and energy and effort. And I just have the faith in people here in the state of Illinois, our political leaders, our business leaders. And I think, you'll see this starting to take shape at the appropriate time, and we'll continually, work and create, why it makes sense.
So you mentioned Mayor Hayes, I believe his
Yes.
name is, from Arlington Heights, and you kind of gave a little more wiggle room there, Kevin. Do you believe then that, like I've used the analogy with Waddle on the show,
Mm-hmm.
when offensive plays don't work,
Mm-hmm.
it's time to go and make adjustments at halftime.
Right.
So do you still own that land in Arlington
100%.
Heights? Is it time to adjust and think and make the primary choice in Arlington Heights?
It's not time to adjust now. I mean, like I said, those 326 acres we own. We're the largest land owner in Arlington Heights. Mayor Hayes is also a great leader. I mean, I know he's announced that he won't be running for re-election, but Randy Reckless and the people in Arlington Heights. One good thing about it is that's unique here. You asked me what's different than the state of Minnesota. Is Illinois has so many positive areas. Optionality exists here not only for the stadium but just in business. So sometimes when you have options, you think it has to be a either or. But we have great political leaders. I love the folks at Arlington Heights, but to answer your question, we haven't reached that point now where it's time to, take a detour and go to Arlington Heights. I think the focus is right now where we are. I know the focus is the museum campus, and we're continually honing our design, and we just have to work through all the kind of the financial structure of this deal, and also the impact that it will have on the number of jobs that people go to work, from the various communities, putting people to work. People need jobs. And I've said it time and time again. I live downtown Chicago. When you look around there, it concerns me the lack of cranes in the air. But again, I know there are a lot of pressing needs, but I'm confident that as we work together, which we've been doing for the last couple of months, we'll do it this summer and into the fall, and we'll be able to come up with ways that we can work together and do the right thing.
You have been adamant with us in the past, though, about, while these things do take time is of the essence, because as you have said to us, the longer you wait, the more expensive the project becomes. When you think of it from a financial perspective, you say there's no drop down date, but do you kind of have like a ballpark of when we do have to make a decision, or otherwise a project that would cost X would cost X plus?
I mean, every day it costs more money, and I've said it, early on. My focus and target, and again, I have high expectations, was to make sure that we're moving dirt, that we're in the ground in 2025, and that still remains a focus. Because once we're able to start with that, because of our organization and diligence, and with the stadium construction, and is the fact we can, it can take us 30 to 36 months to build it. I just think it's important from that. So I still remain steadfast at 2025. It's important for us to start moving dirt, to be in the ground, to be focused, to know where we're going, and I just still remain, focused and energized that we have the right people to be able to make sure this come to reality.
There's an interesting development, I think, and you would know significantly more about it than I but maybe the NFL getting involved with private funding, whether it be private equity. Is that something that could be part of the project if in fact it is something the NFL is willing to kind of partner up with?
Yeah, those are things that are still being finalized from an NFL standpoint. I know one thing that we're confident about, our ownership group. There's never been any discussion about selling the Chicago Bears. I think that's really important, and I'm confident we can figure out how to make this happen, without really any private equity money or any outside investors. But if you look at these projects, what happened in Tennessee, and they work on it, boom, now they're coming out of the ground. Same thing in Buffalo. And when you look at the amount of money that the McCaskey family has agreed to put in from a personal standpoint, it really does make a difference. They're committed to it, and so now it just comes down to us making sure that we have discussed all of these issues. We're doing all that we can. But anytime you get an opportunity where you get a private company, the Chicago Bears are not a publicly traded company, that commits over $2 billion to put into a project in the city, to put people to work, the number of jobs, the number of job hours, puts cranes in the air, and from a revitalization standpoint. And I've said the story many times before. I had never really visited Las Vegas on many occasions, and it wasn't until that I went to the Super Bowl last year that I said, my wife and I went and said, boy, this is a nice city, nice restaurants, is much more than the Strip. And we were just there a couple weeks ago to go back to watch a concert and to enjoy it. So when I talk about Super Bowl, sometimes people have come to me and said, Kevin, you talk about this importance of a Super Bowl, but that can't sustain a project. But what folks don't realize is the fact that a professional sports team, especially in the NFL, draws people not only in person but on television, which then creates an economic engine for people to come and visit Chicago, and that's what's really special. And then when you think back last year, we got a statistic recently that 94 out of the top 100 television shows were NFL games, and the only ones were 3 college football playoff game, Thanksgiving Day parade, the Grammys or Oscars. and then political debate. And when you think about that, so what we have a chance to do, and the Chicago Bear fans, I mean, they are absolutely rabid, not only here but around the world. I mean, we have a strong brand. You're going to see it in Canton. You're going to see it in the UK when we play there. And so I just think it's important in this city. We have a very unique opportunity. One, by us coming together, but doing something big. And you know what? When's the last time that the city of Chicago has had one of these massive construction projects for people to really rally around and be proud of a building that we've been able to build together?
Who did you see in Vegas?
Adele.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
No. Outstanding.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say.
I've been fortunate. I've been a major fan of hers, and so I've got a chance. I think that was my fourth time seeing her. Seen her actually twice in Vegas and two in London, and she is, when you start talking about a generational talent, she's a generational talent. So it was really a blessing to watch her. And then my wife, one of her favorite restaurants is a place called Delilah's that's in the Wynn, and so we were able to enjoy a great meal together, and so it just, but that's an example of it all started with the Super Bowl.
Sure. A couple questions I want to ask about Hard Knocks before we get there really quick on the governor's stuff that I mentioned, the governor's quotes. When you sit down and you just had lunch with the governor, does he counter with anything? What does he say to you when you bring this stuff up about the $2 billion that you guys are putting in? Does he counter and say, but Kevin, you guys need to do X?
I mean, the governor, he's a very wise man. He's an incredible leader. And I would say we aren't at that point yet where it becomes a quote unquote negotiation. One of the things that I think is important, and I've tried to do with all of our political leaders, our business leaders, is to get to know them. Because one thing I found out, the better you get a chance to know someone personally, business becomes easier. And so that's where I am right now. And that's one of the reasons why I'm at so many meetings and dinner meetings and breakfast meetings and lunch meetings and conversations, is because so many times people try to do business and then do personal. And I'm the other way. I want to do personal first, and then it becomes easy to do business, especially once you develop a certain synergy and trust one another. So that's where I am, right now, to really understand business is the easy part. I mean, and I say that, sincerely, that's the easy part. But once you develop a level of trust, with individuals, and you're working on the same page, then I think the business part becomes easy. So that's what I'll continually do, is just focus on building relationship, but also making sure that we're focusing on that a partnership, wherever this story ends, that it has to make not only sense, but it also has to make financial sense for everyone involved.
Go ahead.
Waddle and I have talked about Hard Knocks, and you were talking to us off the air about that you've seen some of the Giants stuff. We've been amazed at the stuff they've left in that even sometimes isn't even flattering for the Giants. Have you sat in front of the editor and have you edited out some stuff for Hard Knocks?
I haven't.
Or do you care what's in there? Are you?
Well, I care about anything about, after I say my prayers in the morning and make sure my wife and kids and our dogs are safe, then the next thing on my mind is Chicago Bears. But I'm confident that kind of the structure that we have developed here with Hard Knocks and NFL Films, it'll provide us with an opportunity to make sure that we have a very productive show. So yeah, I care about everything, and I've enjoyed watching the Giants, even for someone who's been in the NFL for nearly 25 years. It reminds you of how fortunate we are to have the National Football League. So I've enjoyed watching it.
I would think if you're proud of the brand, you would love to get the brand out in front of as many people as humanly possible. And I think Hard Knocks does that with an NFL franchise as well as anything.
Yeah, that's been one of my focal points, is the fact that, you got to recognize, I really am in the process of constantly recruiting new fans from 10 months old to 110 years old. That's kind of my sweet spot. And I just think it's important that
that's a large group
to choose from. But it's important. And people love football. They love NFL football. We have some outstanding players and coaches, and we have, interesting relationship. This is one of the charter franchises. I mean, you were blessed to be able to, play here. The Chicago Bears are a really special organization. And every day that I walk through that front door and see that statue of George Halas, and I walk out just like I will here this evening, I'm just really grateful. And so I'm going to do everything I possibly can to make sure that we win Super Bowl trophies here, that we build a world-class stadium, and that we have a major impact in the community. And if it were easy, it had already been done before. These things, and I will say this, if all of the things were in place, if we had won multiple Super Bowls in a row, had a stadium done, and everything was smooth, I wouldn't have accepted the job. So I like climbing flat walls. But it's been a joy. It's been an honor. It's been a pleasure. I love these fans. I love the McCaskey family, the people that work here, and you can feel it. It's we all been around sports, and people say, well, tell me what momentum feels like. But you've seen games when you go, oh boy, they may still be down by 12, but they're on their way back. I can say this, that you can feel it here in the building, that we're developing momentum, and that we're going to do everything we possibly can, continually sign good players, keep our players, keep working on our stadium project, keep supporting one another. And I think we'll all look back over this stretch run that we're getting ready to start over these next 10 years, and we'll be very pleased of where the Chicago Bears stand.
Well, we can't wait to kick off the season. We've got the pregame show starting on Thursday,
which is crazy.
At 5. Crazy.
Kevin.
And look, you're a man of your word. You said to us when you left our studio on State Street, you said, look, anytime you guys want me, I'm coming down there. And we invited you back on your turf today, and you said, this is what I do. I don't care whatever questions you have for me.
Whatever.
I feel at home doing it, and we appreciate you giving us as much time as you did to Ted too. Thank you for making them available. We appreciate the relationship and the partnership. Thank you so much.
You all are special, and that's the one thing about I respect what you do. I love the work that both of you all do.
Your wife still listen to us?
Yes, she does.
Okay.
She actually
told us that before.
She actually texted me and left me a voicemail and said, I'm looking forward to, I haven't talked to her all day. It was about 5 o'clock this morning when I left home, but she texted me, left me a voicemail, looking forward to listening to you at 5:30 and hear a couple heads up things that they may want to talk to you about, but have a great show. So yeah, she's a big fan of yours.
Doing some scouting.
She does a great job. Yeah, so I appreciate it. And again, I can't believe the season starts. And every time we start a season, I'm just so grateful to God that we have a chance to be able to do this on a daily basis. So just bear down, and I'm looking forward to a great season.
Kevin, thank you so much.
I appreciate you all. Thank you. Keep up the great work.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you all.
Bears
God bless
President
you.
Kevin Warren. We'll be back